Hello and welcome to all our viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC here at Gold. And here at Gold, we are getting ready for our new lactation conference of 2021 coming up, the Gold Lactation Online Conference. We are in our 15th year here at Gold with this conference. And with me here are two of the speakers that will have presentations with us during the conference, Shondra Mattos and Bryna Sampey. Welcome to the two of you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's lovely to have you back here at Gold's, Bryna. It's wonderful to see you again too. Let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. First of all, where in the world are you? And then we want to know a little bit about your professional background. How did you become passionate about the field of lactation?
Oh, well, it's a very long story, but I'll shorten it. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in in Portland, Oregon, and also in Southwest Washington. And I fell in love with lactation. The moment I fell in love with lactation was when I realized that the specific gravity of human milk is the same as the specific gravity of seawater. So if that doesn't say everything, I was a nerd and still am. And I was in marine chemistry before, so Earth systems science and policy. So we did intertidal environments, and it's really depressing. And lactation is not at all depressing and very fascinating. And there's so much to learn and so much to do. And I love to be in a field where I can help people and make a difference. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. And Shondra, what about you? Tell us a little about yourself. Are you the two of you in the same location, or are you, in the same area, or are you far away from each other?
I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, so the opposite side of the country. Yeah, and so I operate a private practice out here. And it's funny, Bryna, because your journey from marine biology, is that what you said, to lactation seems a little distant, like a big of a jump. But I got out of the Army and I was like, what am I going to do with myself? So I was like, let me become a doula. And then it was during that training that I started researching lactation, and I was like, oh, the science, and I'm equally as a nerd. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so it was from that moment that I pursued lactation specifically.
Two nerds found each other. That's so wonderful. So how did you end up collaborating together? Is that the first time you're collaborating, or have you done other conferences together, or presentations together, or how did that come about that you two teamed up here?
Well, it's actually funny because I did all of my research work in Monterey, and Shondra also lived in Monterey, but we never lived there at the same time. So we've sort of found each other and bonded over that a little bit. And then we have collaborated, independently. We've talked, back and forth about, we both love to geek out about muscle function and all sorts of things and lactation. And then I think one of us said to the other, we should do this.
Yeah, so this is our first formal collaboration for presenting.
And it sounds to me it's interesting. I've even chatting the two of you before this little recording here. You really, you have such good energy together. You kind of feed of each other. One says something and then the next jumps in. I mean, you're a perfect team for this topic, because you really complement each other really well here.
Oh, thank you. We end up talking to each. I just need to call you for just a minute, but we'll end up talking for 2 or 3 hours, just because I think we both have similar brains, and we can follow each other's winding thought process pretty well. So we're pretty lucky.
That's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about the presentation, Back to Baseline: Normal Anatomy and Physiology of Infant Feeding. And you talked a little bit about, you both were interested in muscle functions and the tongue and so on. So tell us a little bit about what can we look forward to with this presentation here.
So, do you want to get this, Bryna? I'll start ahead. And then you can finish. Okay. So I was just, the main thing that we're going to be focusing on is just getting everybody familiarized with the things that we know we've learned, but may have forgotten or haven't refreshed. And so we wanted to create a presentation where, regardless of where you're at in your like practice, you can go back to the baseline, get refreshed, and really use that information to excel, because we're focusing on what's normal. And I think that that's not looked at. We always look at dysfunction, and it's hard to know without looking at what's normal what actual dysfunction looks like. Bryna?
Absolutely.
Totally. And I see this all the time from other lactation supporters. So I work closely with midwives and certified lactation counselors who are working in pediatricians' offices, pediatricians, and other providers who have learned all this stuff way back when, but it's never taught in the specific context of lactation and infant feeding. So we see so much dysfunction that we have sort of normalized dysfunction. When we talk about, oh, the baby's tongue's on the floor of the mouth, that's perfect. It's like, is it? So we want to make sure that everybody has in the specific context of lactation and feeding, that there is a conversation about, but function. So I think it's not often talked about and often overlooked, like Shondra said.
Yeah, you made such a good point, because you're right. We all learned it at some point or another, right? We knew it was important, we learned it. And then out in the field, we concentrate on so much of what is not normal, right? But you made such a good point saying, how can we know what's normal or not normal when we don't know what's normal and what does it look like? And in the context of lactation, not just isolating the muscles and knowing, okay, this is that muscle, learning them by heart just for the exam to make sure we know all this, but how does this really work together in the field of lactation, right? And so this is such an important presentation. From what I can tell is no matter where you are, if you're a seasoned professional or you're just starting out, it's good to go back to the baseline to really make the connections, because I can so see some of the more seasoned professionals going, oh yeah, that makes so much sense when I see this, and in that muscle group, of course, this kind of a aha moment coming on there, and for the newer lactation professionals, they're going, so this is where what the book book taught us comes in as in practice. This is where I can use this, right?
Yeah, and I think contextualizing that, it makes a huge difference, like you're saying. And when we talk about teaching parents, one of the things that Shondra and I spent a long time doing is simplifying the language, because a lot of anatomy language is really specialized and really difficult to understand. And when we're teaching parents, you lose them the minute you say, well, this is your depressor anguli oris. Who cares? Or when you can call the rhizorius the smiling muscle, it's so much easier, because parents are like, oh, okay, I know what a smile looks like. I know where that muscle is. That's what we're going to work on. Okay. And that makes a huge difference, because even if you know this stuff, simplifying it and teaching it is a whole extra level.
Yeah.
And Shondra's amazing at that. I'm so grateful to her, because her input on that part of the presentation has been huge.
And one thing I noticed, I had a sneak peek through the slides and the presentation earlier on today, and I have to say, you have these amazing drawings. And you said, simplifying the language is important, but also simplifying the visuals is important, because you can get all these detailed anatomical drawings from the textbooks, and your eyes glaze over, and you go, oh, what is, so focusing on what is really important, what can you see? And you made those beautiful drawings yourself, the two of you, right?
Yeah, so we both we attack them from different angles, right? But I think it comes together and it looks cohesive. We really just wanted to, like you said, simplify and highlight what we're actually focusing on without the extra fluff, but still create a visually engaging presentation to keep people engaged throughout. And I think Bryna she's so great at that. I know we're just going back and forth giving each other compliments, but I worked with the more anatomical stuff, and she was the brains behind the overall visual presentation and creating that.
Beautiful. Great. So one last question, and this one is to put you a little bit on the spot. You talked a lot. We talked about compliments. Now here's some little sharing of knowledge too. And I will start with Bryna. Before we let you go here, Bryna, give us a little nugget of advice that you would our listeners to know, for anybody out there in the lactation world.
Yes, it's probably the most simple advice, but it's the most important. It's not the flange only happens, the flange of the lips on a baby for latching only happens when the correct muscles are engaged. So the flange is only a sign of function. It's not about flipping the lips out to make the flange, because I just explained this to another parent. That's like being on one freeway and putting up the sign for another freeway on that freeway. It doesn't make it that freeway just because you put the sign up. So it's just because it's a landmark of function doesn't mean that you can just flange the lips and get function.
Oh, wow, that was good. Thank you for that. And now what about Shondra?
Oh goodness. I'm gonna say something that took me a long time to get, and this actually I learned shadowing Bryna, is when you're looking at jaw movement, it should look like a little, and she's better explaining it. It should go around in a little circle, right? So we see a lot of like up and down movement with babies that have dysfunction, but what we're really looking for as well for normal function is having it to move forward and down like a little bicycle. So maybe during our presentation we'll be able to highlight that a little bit better than my visual, but I think it's a good thing to remember.
Perfect. And that's the perfect segue here to say thank you to both of you for sitting down here with me to talk about the presentation, and hopefully get our viewers here to get really interested and come to the presentation and the conference. Thank you to the both of you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And now, once again, for our viewers here, this presentation, Back to Baseline, Normal Anatomy and Physiology of Infant Feeding, is part of the Gold Lactation Online Conference of 2021. And if this was intriguing and exciting for you to learn more, and if you want to find out more about all the other fantastic presentations in that conference, we would like to invite you to go to goldlactation.com to find out more. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.